Well, certainly didn't take long for Donald Trump's new defamatory statements about E. Jean Carroll to catch up with him. According to a new court filing, Ms. Carroll is now seeking a, quote, very substantial additional amount in response to Trump's claims about her during his recent CNN town hall, which came one single day after he was found liable in a New York civil trial for abuse and defamation. And just for posterity here, here's that moment where Trump, apparently incapable of grasping the concept of consequences, defamed E. Jean Carroll on national TV.
Do you think that will deter women from voting for you?
No, I don't think so, because I think the whole thing, just so you understand, ready? I never met this woman. I never saw this woman. This woman said, I met her at the front door of Bergdorf Goodman, which I rarely go into, other than for a couple of charities. I met her in the front door. She was about 60 years old, and this is like 22, 23 years ago. I met her in the front door of Bergdorf Goodman. I was immediately attracted to her, and she was immediately attracted to me. And we had this great chemistry. We're walking into a crowded department store. We had this great chemistry, and a few minutes later, we end up in a room, a dressing room of Bergdorf Goodman, right near the cash register. And then she found out there were locks on the door, so she said, I found one that was open. She found one. She learned this at trial. She found one that was open. What kind of a woman meets somebody and brings them up, and within minutes you're playing hanky-panky in a dressing room, okay? I don't know if she was married then or not. John Johnson, I feel sorry for you, John Johnson.
Mr. President.
And I hope it was worth those laughs, because that single response may have just cost Trump another several $1 million. At least that's what E. Jean Carroll is pushing for, with today's court filing saying, quote, this conduct supports a very substantial punitive damages award in Carroll's favor, both to punish Trump, to deter him from engaging in further defamation, and to deter others from doing the same. And that's the part that Trump doesn't seem to grasp here. The whole point of punitive damages that Trump was forced to pay out in the initial defamation case was to punish him and deter him from future defamation. And yet, what did he do within 24 hours of getting hit with that verdict? He engaged in more defamation, which is why E. Jean Carroll is now saying clearly Donald Trump has learned nothing from those inadequate punitive damages imposed in the first trial, so clearly we have to increase that amount. And while we don't know what amount she's seeking yet, the goal is obviously to finally reach a number where the punishment is felt enough to actually deter Trump from defaming anyone in the future. And this shouldn't come as a surprise. This is literally how the legal system works. As violations accumulate, the punishments become more severe. If you go to court with no priors, you might get off with a slap on the wrist. But if you go to court with a whole rap sheet, that's taken into account, and the consequences are generally worse. Donald Trump is proving to the jury in real time that he is not willing to take the law seriously, that he doesn't think it applies to him, and so the onus will then be on the court to determine the punishment that reaches a level that might actually make this guy pay attention. But clearly, we haven't reached that point yet. And it's not just the money. It's also the fact that Trump is making a mockery of the legal system by so quickly and publicly discarding that verdict. E. Jean Carroll's attorney, Roberta Kaplan, said, quote, it makes a mockery of the jury verdict in our justice system if he can just keep on repeating the same defamatory statements over and over again. And by the way, this court filing should have been expected by Trump and his legal team. Here's E. Jean Carroll and her attorney teasing this decision while speaking with Rachel Maddow.
I mean, you did force accountability, and then he did it again. The defamation, the calling you a liar, the exact same things the jury held him liable for the day before, he did again the next day on national television. Is that just the way it has to be? Do you think that potentially could be actionable if you were to file another suit? Would it work the same way?
So it's definitely actionable. And here the cruelty will make him less wealthy. He's not going to get away with it another time. It's unprecedented for a person to have been held liable in defamation to keep doing the defamation. So there are not a lot of cases that we can look to for a playbook about how to do it. But suffice to say, I have a lot of lawyers who are very busy looking into this, and we are weighing all of our options.
You also have another live case from the time when he was president and he was stating these same untrue things about you, defaming you in the same way. That case is still working its way through the courts. What is your expectation in terms of what's going to happen there?
You're going to see news from us in that case very, very soon, Rachel.
What counts as very soon?
I don't know how late the people work tonight, 2 to 3 days max.
Wow. Okay.
But we're fully pursuing that case. We got a very good decision from the D.C. Court of Appeals, essentially affirming Judge Kaplan that when Trump said what he said about E. Jean in 2019, he was not acting as president. We're quite confident that that will be affirmed, and then we'll be able to move forward with damages in that case. We don't even need a finding of liability because we already have it. and we'll be able to find damages. And there, the defamation damages are much higher, because that was the first statement he made, and that's what really destroyed her reputation as an advice columnist at Elle and to all her readers and people who trusted her and who looked up to her.
Now, I know this could get confusing because there are actually two cases happening at once. So just for some background, in 2022, New York passed a law giving adult assault victims a one-time opportunity to file civil cases, even if the statute of limitations to bring about a criminal case had expired. Now, E. Jean Carroll subsequently filed a lawsuit accusing Trump of abuse, for which a jury found him liable a couple of weeks back. But separately, in 2019, while Trump was president, Carroll filed a different defamation lawsuit against him for claiming that she lied in her memoir. Now, Bill Barr, who was Attorney General at the time, swapped out Trump for the federal government in that case, claiming, absurdly, that Trump couldn't be held personally liable for actions taken in his role as president. And I say absurdly because it is not within the scope of presidential duties to attack an abuse victim. Not exactly one of the jobs of president. So that case has worked its way through the appeals process and is now sitting on Judge Kaplan's docket. Now, those were split into two separate cases because the first was against Trump as a private citizen, the other was against him as president, where, again, he decided that he could try to use the government as a shield against any accountability. But hopefully the court system finds that Trump's attacks on E. Jean Carroll were not within the scope of his role as president, because of course they're not, and a defamation trial can proceed against Trump for the attacks that he waged on her in 2019. And if and when that happens, E. Jean Carroll is looking to revise that lawsuit to include the fact of the verdict in the 2022 case, as well as Trump's post-verdict statements on CNN and Truth Social. All of which is to say, if that case does move forward, then it'll move forward in a much worse way for Donald Trump. And I'll just end with this. Good on E. Jean Carroll for standing up to the guy who, until she won this case, had been able to lie with impunity. It was quite literally not until E. Jean Carroll won this first lawsuit that Trump had ever been held accountable for his lies, as dangerous and damaging and defamatory as they were. She suffered an avalanche of attacks, not just the ones that incited this lawsuit to begin with, but also in the way that any Trump attack works, where his thousands upon thousands of supporters swarm that person because they saw the bat signal from their leader. For any person to have to endure what she endured is the envy of no one. But because of her strength and the competence of her legal team, there is finally precedent for Trump to be held accountable for his actions. And it shows that so long as Trump wants to continue to ignore the law, to continue to ignore legal precedent, E. Jean Carroll will be there ready to fight. And given the fact that she was able to convince a jury once, it stands to reason that she'll be able to convince another jury that Trump is liable every time he decides to commit the same offense. So I'm certain that if given the choice, E. Jean Carroll would choose 10 times out of 10 for Trump to keep her name out of his mouth. But given the fact that he can't, at the very least, it'll be some solace to make him keep paying up every time he does. Before you go, if you enjoyed this video and want to see more, please make sure to subscribe to my channel. You can click the thumbnail right here on this screen. And if you want to support my work even further, the best way is to subscribe to my podcast, No Lie with Brian Tyler Cohen. There you can check out my interviews with major players in the world of politics, including President Biden, Vice President Kamala Harris, Pete Buttigieg, Elizabeth Warren, Katie Porter, Jamie Raskin, and so many more. Plus other interviews that live exclusively on the podcast. That link is also right here on this screen, or just search No Lie with Brian Tyler Cohen wherever you listen to podcasts.